Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Cameron Carlson. I'm excited. We are excited to have you, and we'll get started here shortly. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Cameron Carlson, and I will be presenting alongside Kian Oros tonight. And today we're going to be going over Austin, Texas. And more specifically, we're going to do an overview of the market, as well as some incredible investment opportunities that it presents. So a little bit about me. I am a realtor as well as advisor here at Marshall Reddick Real Estate. I have my bachelor's from Vanguard University, and I've had the pleasure of working in almost every department at Marshall Reddick, including accounting, including our private lending team, property management, and our real estate sales side too. I've done real estate transactions in 7 different states, and I also am a Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund investor. So for some of you, you might be familiar with Marshall Reddick, and for others, this might be your first time hearing about us. We are a full service real estate firm, and we basically have 4 divisions within our company. The first division is we are a real estate brokerage. We help many people buy and sell their primary residences as well as buy and sell investment properties. Nationwide, we did around 600 transactions this last year, and 90% of the investment transactions we did, we also manage. That brings me to our second division, property management. We take care of absolutely everything from landlords. That goes leasing, maintenance, renovations, rent collections, and much more. And we can talk about that on a follow-up call. Basically, for you as a landlord, all you need to know is that you collect a rent check every month. The third division is private lending. Sometimes, if you can't qualify for conventional financing, you might need to go the private route. Marshall Reddick provides non-owner occupied real estate loans to borrowers that are doing maybe fix and flips or new construction or just purchasing investment property, and it's not going to be conventional. The fourth division is we do mortgage investing. So the same way that you can own real estate and collect rent checks, our investors own mortgages and collect mortgage payments. I personally invest in the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund, as I mentioned, where I don't really need to think about it and I collect the check with a quarterly distribution. And then as mentioned here at Marshall Reddick, I am a real estate advisor. So Marshall Reddick is located in 11 major metropolitans across the United States, and you can see them here on the map. We've got the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside, New Braunfels, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Texas, and Nashville, and we've got Clarksville, and then in Florida, we've got Cape Coral. You may wonder why these states, why these markets? Well, as an investor, it's very important which markets that you choose, and there are several reasons why we selected these markets. First, we look for markets with strong economic growth, low unemployment rate, and an overall stable job market. We also want markets where there is a high rental demand. These markets are very landlord friendly, and they might have a higher ratio of renters to homeowners. All of these markets are very diverse in their industries. We like to see especially a variety of essential industries like military, medical, maybe insurance, communication, information technology. Something else, it's also very important that the market has a decently low barrier of entry. Are the houses affordable for investors? Maybe there are suburbs that have more affordability, that are family-friendly neighborhoods. We also want a good education system. These a lot of these we want to have our tenants that are educated, and they're going to have more desirable school districts. Maybe there's a university there. And one of the most important criteria is property management. There should be a good selection of property management companies in the metropolitan that are competitive with one another to produce good services. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you have a bad property manager and there are only maybe 1 or 2 other companies nearby that might not provide much better service. This is also a big reason why we do property management. It's very important. Most of our staff own or aspire to own investment property, so we manage your property as if it's our own. We believe that we should only profit when the landlord profits. So we charge a percentage of the rental income when you receive rent, and we do not charge any fee when you are spending money on maintenance. We'd be happy to kind of talk to you more about our management services on a follow-up call. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce Kian Oros, who's going to go over our Austin market and some of its awesome investment opportunities.
Thank you, Cameron. Yeah, thank you guys for joining today. I'm out of the Central Texas market. I'm a licensed Texas realtor. I started real estate in 2017. So it's been about 6 years for me. It's been about 5 years with Marshall Reddick. I do hold a broker's license in the state of Texas. I got my start at Marshall Reddick doing leasing. So that's kind of my background when I first began at Marshall Reddick. Is leasing a lot of the units that we had both in San Antonio, Austin, and New Braunfels Greater. That gave me some good experience on what investments work best, what different tenants you'll see in different areas, and the pros and cons of different investments that you'll see. In addition, the last few years, I've focused more on selling investment properties than leasing them. So in 2021 through 2023, I've averaged close to about 60 to 70 properties that I've sold investment-wise a year. I only specialize in investment properties. I currently now lead the entire Texas team, both in the Houston market, Austin, and San Antonio market as the sales manager. So I do not actively sell anymore, but I have members in each one of these areas. And so I'm helping them with the background experience I have, and a lot of them are the local experts as well that live in each of these markets. And I'm a lifelong Central Texas resident. So I grew up in New Braunfels, which is about 40 minutes from Austin, down I-35. I lived in San Antonio. I own property in San Antonio, New Braunfels, Schertz area. A lot of my family lives in Houston. A lot of my friends live in Austin. So I have a little bit of roots everywhere. So this is our Central Texas team. So between all the properties that we manage, it's about 4 property management teams, and in each team there's about 5 people. So it does take a village. With our agent side of things, we have about 25 agents. A lot of those are leasing and sales agents. And then we do have accountants as well, maintenance guys. And then we have our connection team in California as well that helps support too. So we are the biggest office for Marshall Reddick in Central Texas. And again, it takes a village. So why Texas? Why Central Texas in particular? And then we're going to get into a bit about specifically Austin, Texas. Texas is second to California population-wise. So in the United States, we have about 29 million people in Texas. It's very landlord friendly in our state. That's the big difference between us and California, is the laws are definitely situated with the landlord. So it is very easy to evict people. It's usually anywhere from a 30 to 60 day process. There was times in COVID where it was a little bit longer, but nothing to the degree of some of the horror stories we hear in states like New York and California. So it is very fair and just. There isn't, it's not like a Wild West where there is no rules for the landlord, but it's definitely reasonable to getting non-paying tenants out of the property, or if there's damage, it's easy for us to escalate, which is really good, and that's what a lot of people fear. We still have a very low default rate. So through COVID, a really interesting thing during disaster is we got to kind of see how different markets reacted during that time, especially during the first part of COVID when we were in lockdowns for various places. And Texas actually ranged the best for default rate. So when people maybe immediately lost their jobs or were out of work, we had still only about 2% for our whole portfolio in Texas that were in default at any given time. In a lot of our other states, this was a little bit higher. It could go up all the way to about 10% or more for the portfolio. So a lot of that is the type of property we sell. We definitely try to maintain a good quality of property that we'll get into here later in the call, but that definitely helps in terms of your likelihood, your chances of possible default. Central Texas in particular is in a, I would say, minimal disaster zone. So it's not that disasters don't happen at all. I wouldn't say there's any place in the country where no disasters happen, but certainly if we're talking earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, fires, Central Texas is pretty resistant to all those things. In some parts, there is flood zones throughout Central Texas. It isn't commonplace, and we always have the data to show which properties are and aren't in a flood zone. But with that said, insurance is widely available in all of Central Texas, and it's very inexpensive. This helps you both in the short term in buying and also in the long term withholding the investment on maintenance. Central Texas also has a super diversified workforce. It is very working class. San Antonio is mostly a lot of military and government. And in contrast to that, Austin is a lot of tech and corporate. So it is more white collar oriented, where a lot of the south region of Texas and South Central is more working class. So you're going to see military, medical, industrial, manufacturing, more of what middle America jobs are, where Austin is going to be a little bit of a higher height for income. And you can see here from 2010, and this is to 2019, the population boom of Austin was pretty large. So it had a net migration of about 355,000 people. So in comparison to the numbers that you run on some of the other cities in Texas, it has seen quite a big boom. So this is our property management map of all the different areas in Central Texas. Again, namely the big markets are San Antonio greater, New Braunfels greater, and Austin greater. So New Braunfels is going to be along the I-35 stretch, and that will connect San Antonio to Austin. Furthermore, if you go north of Austin on I-35, you'll eventually hit Waco, and then you'll eventually hit Dallas. So this main connection point is really powerful because that's where a lot of the growth is, being that it's the main connection point between all these major metropolitans. So we've seen that as those two cities continue to grow together, much like the Dallas and Fort Worth metropolitan, that, areas like New Braunfels, Buda, Kyle, these suburbs that are in between San Antonio and Austin are growing very rapidly. So those are really good places to look. And in addition, they're not overly expensive. So we're talking that these homes, for a single family, range in kind of the low 300 range for a nice home in a nice area, which again is typically what we look for. And that's going to be the lower default rate that you can typically, hope to get in an investment. In Austin, we have a range of about 150 units in Austin. It is less of we have less units there than the New Braunfels in San Antonio because of its affordability. It is a little bit expensive to own in Austin, and we'll get into different pockets and what the cost and price point will be. It's a little bit easier in San Antonio and New Braunfels day one with 25 to 30% down to cash flow or to break even. So that's where a lot of investors will go, maybe for their first investment. As you get a little more diversified, you maybe want to break into different markets that have different job core. That protects you in certain times where maybe that job core is amplified. Austin during COVID and during a lot of this tech boom that we're still going through with AI and everything, Austin grew the most in value. Now that we're in kind of more of a recession period, Austin has kind of dipped a little bit in value, which is good for a chance that, Austin is finally a little bit slower, which Austin has been, one of the highest appreciators in the state since even before COVID. So 2018 year over year, the rates of appreciation were super high. So this is kind of a slowdown for Austin. It's a great entry point for where I think it's going to continue to grow. So even though it's taken a dip, it still stands as the most expensive city, even in contrast to areas like North Dallas, which are very expensive pockets of the state as well. So it depends on what you're looking for. Austin in particular, which is the purpose of this call, is going to be more, of a white collar market, and that's going to come with a higher price point. And when I mean white collar market, you can look to areas like Nashville, which is kind of the version of Austin in Tennessee, or even Miami or Orlando, that will be that similar version in Florida. And those are kind of what people call second cities. So they're second to the first cities of America, which you can say is New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and probably Chicago too. So these have been a lot of the growers as, people were put out of jobs, and with the crazy amounts of inflation, people were looking to second cities to get a lot of the same appeal job-wise, culture-wise, size-wise, accessibility-wise as these big cities with a dip of price. And that is what Nashville, Austin, and areas like Orlando and Miami are. So why Austin, Texas in particular? It's been rated the #1 place to live by US News. It's Forbes list, the 8th place for business and careers, 9th place for job growth, and 16th place for education. For a lot of its school districts, it has A grade, the most of any city widely for its schools. And then the music scene is really large as well. And then also the film scene. So a little bit of what I guess you could consider a Hollywood in Texas is kind of sprouting out. It has been for the last few years. Of course, we have Austin City Limits, ACL. We have South by Southwest, which is a big both music and film festival, similar to maybe Comic-Con in San Diego. And that has become bigger and bigger and more prominent over the years. We'll talk about a little bit later. There's a large film studio coming to the suburbs of Austin. So a lot of these jobs that traditionally have stayed very coveted to California are starting to break up as the California main markets are getting wildly expensive for the majority of people, and a lot of people are being displaced from jobs and have to, again, look at other options for places to live. So in addition, again, the job market is a big driving point. Health, fitness, and culture. The culture is a big part. I'll get to a comparison between LA and Austin, but there's a lot of culture elements to Austin that feel very similar to LA in terms of access, whether it's access to luxuries, access to fitness, nicer studios, nicer apartments, different architectural styles. It has more of that range. More diverse neighborhoods as well, live music. It is a younger crowd. I'll go to this stat here, but you'll see the median age of we call them Austinites, is early 30s. So that kind of goes to show you the majority of Job Corps really is in tech. A lot of tech does seem to be kind of in the early 30s, maybe late 20s stage. And that keeps the city very young, and for that reason, they have more of maybe like a nightlife, more fun of a culture. You'll see more in areas like Houston and San Antonio that is much more family oriented, especially with San Antonio. It is majority military, so there's more of a traditional element there, and things are more situated to children and families. So it drives the culture a little bit, and maybe a lot of what people are used to in LA, they see more of that in Austin than say a San Antonio. So I wanted to show the stats of an Austin versus San Antonio. An interesting thing that we've noticed in the coming years when we're tracking the year-over-year appreciation. And this is the average pricing for an A to B class home in Austin last 30 years. When we look at our calculator and we put out what we think the annual appreciation will be, that's a compounded number. Combining all of these numbers together. So the good, the bad, and the ugly of all the years that we've seen Austin in recent decades. So you can even see through the recession that Austin, 2008 actually rose in value, dipped a slight bit, not even -1%, so almost about break even in 29, and then recovered pretty well in 2010 to a 3% increase, but then again, another break-even year there. But year over year, it's had really good appreciation, and that kind of gets you to an average of about 5 to 6% that you're looking at when you compound all of these. Price points are a little more different. So for a luxury property in Austin, you're typically looking at about 600,000 and up. For an A-class property, and it's, we're mostly talking about Austin as a city. There's lots of suburbs where you can find better options that are cheaper, but Austin, Texas, the specific city, and mainly the central city of Austin, A-class property is going to be high 400s and up, so close to $500,000, and then B-class is going to be around 400,000 price point. But one interesting thing when we look and compare San Antonio stats, if you pull any time period up on the map, San Antonio market follows Austin market by about 3 years, give or take. So wherever San Antonio is now, Austin price point was about there 3 years ago. So if we look at right now, you know, we're now in 2023, so 3 years ago, it was 2020. So if we're looking at what price points were 2019 to 2020, we're falling in the mid 300s range. That is right where San Antonio market is right at the moment. So Austin has a lot of big pull on the surrounding market. So again, if Austin is kind of price point wise not what you want, San Antonio can be a good alternative because it follows pretty closely behind Austin in terms of price, but Austin will always lead the charge. And that's mainly because of the pay. So when you have a more talented workforce, and those jobs oftentimes have higher pay on average, people have more money to spend, there's more of a high demand, people can put out more money, that affects the local market. And that's why we see these higher prices and these higher appreciation. So you can see 2021, it's about 33%, which is wild. But 2022 was about almost the same. It was probably around 20%. Now we've seen this year Austin actually take a negative. It's actually come back a little bit. And again, if we're looking at surrounding markets, even though they are less expensive, they're still pretty solid right now, and that's because they're affordable. So San Antonio really hasn't gone negative. It's stayed pretty stagnant as rates have increased, but Austin has come negative. So it's kind of the higher you climb, a little bit of the harder you fall, but also in recession periods, as we can see here, these second cities, so the Nashvilles, the Austins, the Phoenixes, etc., they're usually the first to bounce back. And a lot of that is because of the big business, the corporation, the tech companies. As recessions kind of clear up, also recession makes a lot of new companies in that time, especially out of the first few years past a recession. So those markets do really well post a recession. So it's a good time to buy in for something like Austin. As I've said, the last 5 years, it's been very hard to get your foot in the door. And it's still very expensive at the moment. But you know, things have taken a decrease and you have more buying power. You have more say in what option you want. You know, we had clients throughout the last 3 years who really wanted Austin and maybe just kind of got what they could get. Rather than maybe what they wanted. So now you definitely have more options on the market, and you can get something you really feel strongly about, whether it's the specific area of Austin or it's the specific house itself. So these are a lot of the top employers that you're looking at. Again, a lot of tech companies. Tesla has been the main one that came several years back, and they've started to build you know, one of their main headquarters out here. They're doing a chip plant now that's going to be a little bit closer to San Antonio and Seguin area. Amazon has several plants throughout Austin. Apple also has a campus out there. Google, which is not on this list, does. Meta just bought one of the largest leases downtown. Also a newer one that's not on this list. That is moving to the downtown area. IBM and Dell, they've been there quite a while, and so has Deloitte. Oracle has a lot of presence throughout Central Texas, so they have a really big office in San Antonio, as well as Austin. So this is a little cheat sheet that I wanted to kind of show you for the different pockets of Austin. So this is going to be Austin Central, and that's going to be the main core city. So when we're talking about price points, that's really the price. These higher price points that we're talking about will be the exact city limits of Austin. When we're talking about suburbs, so South Austin, East Austin, North, those will be a little bit different in price. And so if you're trying to get your foot into the door, a lot of those markets that are still very close and their proximity is good enough to where your tenant can still get into the city easily. You're still going to have a lot of spillover. The appreciation will still pull you up from being close enough, but they will be much more affordable. North Austin is going to be the most expensive suburb, and a lot of the Google, Apple, higher concentration of tech is in North. Those north suburbs is going to be Leander, Cedar Park, Round Rock, Georgetown, Hutto. Hutto is getting the, I believe, Samsung plant that's coming in. That's, you know, in progress right now, so that's going to bring a lot of jobs to the area. And then the Domain is a large shopping center that's been around a while, but it is one of the newer ones. A really nice luxury shopping center with a lot of designers there. It rivals kind of the Grove of LA a little bit. That's kind of the vibe they're going for, but it continues to expand. And there is some, once you get closer to like Crestview area, this is North Central or North Lamar, that is a more expensive area with older inventory. So if you want newer, you oftentimes have to look a little bit further out. That's going to be the Georgetown and the Round Rock. Those properties in that area, you know, for a good A or B class home is going to be probably low 400s to high 300s for a lot of these pockets. As you get to North Austin, we're talking about the price points that we just looked at, and that's going to be closer to the 500 to 600,000 price point for Central North Austin, which would be in this dark orange bubble here. West Austin, which is going to be on this portion near the lake, is going to be the kind of the luxury pocket of a lot of Austin. These are going to be the highest price point properties on record for Austin Metropolitan. This is largely considered the hill country. San Antonio has their version of this, as well as New Braunfels. So above New Braunfels, it's Canyon Lake and Spring Branch. And above San Antonio, it's Bernie and Bulverde. Above Austin, it's Lakeway and Bee Cave, as well as Wimberley. So these areas, you know, are highly coveted. They're mostly hill country property, larger lots. They're going to be above kind of the luxury pricing that we discussed, which is 600K and up. It will be more 700 and 800K. Some of the highest appreciation we have seen has been in this area. A lot of people call Lakeway a little bit of the Beverly Hills of Austin. So while it is expensive, it still is far less expensive than these first cities and their luxury spots of their cities. A lot of the medical centers are going to be more on the west side of town. So that is another thing as well. South Austin, which is namely San Marcos, Kyle, and Buda, are going to be, for at least the school districts, proximity and all factors will be my favorite. It's going to be very affordable. Again, good schools. It's along I-35 too. So not only are you pretty close to downtown Austin, you're going to be about 20 minutes away. You're also only about 30 minutes away from New Braunfels. So not far to everything south of you. So at least you have two markets that kind of pull you in either direction. And tenants really like being in the mix of a few things, both for their kids, their family, job opportunities, friends, festivals and cultures. A lot of the things to enjoy in Austin are in South Central. So that's going to be a lot of things out of Slaughter Lane, Zilker area, again, Central, closer to Central. Zilker is where they host a lot of the festivals. That's the big park downtown. Great school quality too for a lot of that. That's Austin ISD. And then Kyle and Buda share an ISD as well that's pretty highly rated. And you're not too far from the airport that is a little bit east. And properties there are going to be a little bit closer to New Braunfels pricing. So you can find something 350 to 400 that is pretty A and B class. So it is more affordable. The numbers work much better. Then we're going to get to East. This is an area for schools that's usually not as good, but not one size fits all. Bastrop is a little bit off the path here. So this is pretty far east. They have a lot of construction coming to Bastrop. One major film studio project that I'll share here later. A lot of other things that have come in recent years. Tesla is in East Austin, so a lot of people like it for that reason. Very affordable, almost more affordable than South, but a lot of land to develop on, so it has a lot way to go until it's more built up. There's a lot of toll roads out in that direction. The airport is in East Austin, you can see right here. This is going to be the Del Val area where Tesla is, along with the airport. Circuit of the Americas is out there, and their racetrack and amphitheater. So they have a lot of the artists that go play out at that amphitheater, as well as a lot of the racing, NASCAR and racing that you'll see. There's a lot of new construction too. So if you're looking to get a good deal on cheaper new construction, Elgin, Bastrop, Del Val will have more of those options, as well as Manor. Manor's a good one, you know, that I feel is a little bit close to Austin and still affordable. So some things to consider, like I said, a lot of the appeal of Austin is that it's the second city, second being to Los Angeles or San Francisco. You know, and a few of the contrasts that we can talk about is definitely the main proponent is price, and that's what's driving a lot of people in that direction. But a lot of things culturally, they're a little bit of the same with some benefits as well. So like I said, Austin is low for disasters. Both cities have going for them that they are the highest cost of living in their state. So Austin is similar in that trajectory that's pretty inexpensive, pretty expensive for people within Texas, as well as Los Angeles is expensive for people within California, also people just largely in the country as is. Highest income in the state usually come from both of those markets. Austin at least has one thing positive going for it, that within the state, it has the cleanest air quality. That's pretty good, and then really low for disasters. So in comparison to, you know, San Antonio sees more droughts because it's a little bit more south west. Now Dallas is closer to Oklahoma in the tornado belt, so sometimes North Dallas, especially in Denton, will get tornadoes and snow a little bit more frequently than we'd ever see down here. We typically don't see snow at all in Central Texas. Houston, on the other hand, is along the Gulf. It's right now near Galveston, so a lot of South Houston does see flooding. It does, you know, sometimes have hurricanes there. For that reason, insurance is a little bit more expensive in Houston, as well as property taxes. So all of them have their pros and cons, but Austin definitely is better for being, again, disaster resistant. But the main thing that I think ties a lot of the cities together is the culture, the luxuries that you have living in those cities, accessibility, a lot of, you know, whether it's, you know, kind of the premier hotspots for shopping centers or for, you know, top 5-star restaurants or any of the best that you could possibly see. Both of these cities will have it for their state. And, you know, if you're a high-performing family, high-performing individual who has a really good income, typically, you know, if you are moving from Los Angeles and you were thinking of moving someplace in Texas, Austin would probably be a better place for you to fit. Though it is more expensive, again, it has the accessibility for a lot of high-paying jobs, and just the culture fits are all there. The University of Texas at Austin, founded in 1883, it ranks amongst the 40 best universities in the world. This is a public university. It has about 40,000 undergraduate students, and it employs, you know, this is a big employer as well. It's about 24,000 faculty and staff. For the US, it ranks in the top 10, so that's really good as well. They have a pretty prestigious business school, McCombs, that is also there, and this university is downtown. So it is kind of a little bit of a tourist destination too, but a lot of the students do live on campus downtown in the Austin area. And again, that's kind of what brings a lot of that average for age, you know, kind of down to make it, you know, a younger city overall. So a few of the projects from now to 2030, Austin was rated the smartest city in the country to surpass the Bay Area in green energy by the end of the decade. So Bay Area typically has been a little bit more disaster resistant for California, at least being in North California, and a little bit above the rest of the country in green energy, in solar, in wind. And so Austin is kind of a little bit following suit. That's more of their priorities, and they've integrated that a lot into their architecture. Their city codes are a little more extensive in what they require on their new construction. So they are trying to move in that direction. Again, Austin has already been rated best air quality for the state. Like I said, Bastrop is a little bit further east. It's a little bit off the map. It's about 30 minutes off I-35 to get to Bastrop. This is going to be the biggest film studio that we'll have in Texas. And this is slated for next year. So we actually have an agent that's coming on that lives right next door. You know, this has been a big growing point for Bastrop. Already a few of the major studios have gotten into leases for the studio. Netflix, Hulu, Disney have all, you know, already, I think, have signed up for leases for projects over there. So that's pretty interesting. Again, film has been more coveted to California to see more of these projects pop up in Texas is a pretty special thing. So this will bring a lot of jobs and even more of that California kind of interest over here. And another possibly good place to look to invest as land becomes more expensive and sparse. In Central Austin, a lot of the suburbs will have these bigger projects. For instance, Tesla got into Del Valle. Del Valle is still pretty rural to East. Now we have this project, this film project for the studios out in Bastrop. Hutto got the Samsung plant for the chip factory. So Hutto is kind of a further suburb of northeast, you can say. So a lot of these bigger projects, because they involve so much land and development, they are moving further out. So, getting into one of these further out markets doesn't necessarily mean that you're not in a valuable area. It will just be a longer time to kind of see these projects come to fruition. So we're going to look through some hand-picked properties. This is we actually manage about 12 units in Joanne Loop. This was an older development that we had with our builder several years ago. This one was from 2019, right before COVID. These used to be around that time, like high 300s, and now they're kind of in the high 500s, low 600 range. But this is a really good one that is on the newer side. I'm going to go through a little bit of the numbers here. So the gross rent, this is what you're going to make with both units combined. A good thing about this one is that one side's already rented out, so you don't have to worry about leasing. And then the other side is vacant, but they are working on leasing that at the moment. You have all the other expenses that you'll have here with the property. We tally that up and then estimate what you're actually going to profit on the property based on the 30% down. Really kind of the number that we're looking for is that we want a property to pay its own expenses, not only upfront, which is the general fixed expenses that you have on a home, but you also kind of want it to pay its variable expenses. So one thing to keep in mind is that as you hold a home longer and longer, you're going to see maintenance. Occasionally, you're going to see vacancy when you lose a tenant. But as long as you have a reserved savings from a little bit of the money you're making on these properties, these expenses that start to come up should pay for themselves. So the goal is that after you pay this $192,000, you never have to put an extra dime into this property as long as you save. So we put some variable expenses here to say, hey, out of the money you make on this home, save 6%, save 4%. For that rainy day in the future, because a lot of these properties, especially this one, will have a foundation warranty still for 10 years. It will still have electrical, plumbing warranty for 5 years. Some of the major cosmetic items, minor cosmetic items may have already been passed for warranty, but a newer home that's 2019 still won't see too many things here now in 2023. So this is a really good option where you have some cash flow after you pay all your fixed responsibilities. You're in a little bit of a negative at -300 a month after your variable expenses. So these are the things that, again, could happen based on the events of the property. I would say the nicer the home is, the newer the home is, these variables will be lower and lower. So, this one's at 4 or 6%. As you start to gain with property that is older or in not as nice areas, it's going to take longer to rent it out because it's not a good unit. It's low rent. Not a lot of people can qualify for our requirements. Therefore, it's going to take longer. So this has to be more like 8 or 10. For maintenance, obviously if it's older, there's going to be more things that are going to come with it. So, and you'll see rent increases as well. So the average rent increase that we typically see is going to be anywhere from 5 to 7% for a lot of these pockets. So you can see maybe just in a year's time, if it goes up $100 on each unit, that's $200. You're almost to breaking even on your total cash flow. So even not only paying these expenses, but your variable too. So that's the realistic goal for Austin. It is a more expensive market. So to try to get total cash flow, so the whole potato, to really be self-sustaining day one is going to be harder in these second city markets of the Austin, of the Nashville, of the Phoenix, but these are the top tier cities of their state. So that's going to come with some trade-offs. You know, you're getting a higher appreciation rate year over year, more desirable area, higher upturn, nicer type of tenant that's probably going to stay longer, but your entry numbers are going to be a little bit worse. So it is always give and take, and there's markets for every person. There's certainly been a lot of clients that come to me that initially are stuck on Austin and then they pivot to San Antonio, or clients that even come with San Antonio in mind and then start to open up to thinking about South Austin. So it can go in either direction. This is a pretty even set investment where at least you have 2 units. So if one goes vacant, you still have one in the other side. They're very unique units too, that they have 2-car garages. The entry is on either side of the building, so you have a lot of privacy that tenants aren't bumping into each other. Nice backyard, spacious units. These are about 1,300 square feet each, 3-bed, 2-bath. So they feel like single family homes. So that's a lot of people's gripe over multifamilies. I don't want really shady units. I don't want small units. I don't really want, you know, student housing. These don't have any of those characteristics. These really genuinely feel like homes, and that's what you want to go for when you're going for multifamily, is that at least it sustains a rent and a quality of tenant that is higher. That way you can get those rent increases and move with the market as that city expands. So this is a pocket listing that we have at the moment that we are renting out with one of our landlords. This one is on Kinney's Way. This is Round Rock area. So this one's a bit older. This is 2007. So it has a lot more character. It's 3-side brick. This one's going to be about 1,400 square feet. Really nice area of Round Rock. With you're looking at this, you're going to see, and one thing to keep in mind too, for a lot of these properties, we'll do free property management for the first year to help with the numbers. So for the other one, that was with the free property management that you'll see for a year that you get applied on these houses when we help you sell. With this other one, you'll see the management fee there, kind of to give you a contrast. But if we do free property management for a year, this 151 falls off and you're about break even at fixed. So property pays for its own expenses, but where you're in the negative is your total cash flow. So the things like the maintenance and vacancy, you're going to be paying out of pocket for on this property. And this is going to be about 150 lower because of that deduction. And the what we typically see is next year, once you have your first rental increase, it will be a wash. So yes, you'll have a management fee after into year 2, but then you'll have a rent increase. So you'll kind of be similar numbers from year 1 to year 2, on these stats. But you'll start to catch up and be in a profit. So starting to expand your cash flow numbers in year 3 and 4. So it's a longer term hold. Again, in Austin, your entry level, you're always going to see negatives even at 30%. If you really wanted to be total positives day 1, you're going to have to think about 40 or 45, which at that point, a lot of people think that you're over leveraging, and you probably are. It's probably better to just sit with the negatives and maybe look at just having a savings to where you can deal with that for a year or 2 until it is in the positives, and use some of that extra capital to maybe buy in a different market, like San Antonio or Clarksville or Arizona. So this is another good option. Single family homes, a little bit easier to liquidate because it has a bigger buyer pool, especially if it's vacant and you're selling it vacant in the future. There's just more people both now and in the future that can afford and want to live in a single family home. Or an investment property, a duplex, a fourplex will always be an income property. So there's only going to be so many people looking for that or who can afford that, both now and in the future. Now, inventory is still low for multifamily in a lot of parts of Central Texas. You have to get specific zoning for multifamily. So all in all, it isn't hard to sell multifamily. It's just less of a buyer pool, and there's certainly less inventory. So we've still been pretty successful in offloading any inventory when we need to for duplexes and fourplexes. But single family home will have that advantage. It usually will appreciate a tad bit more. And then, overall, when the time comes for you to sell it, you'll have a little bit of an easier chance, depending on the market conditions. But overall, it's going to have the biggest buyer pool. Well, that's it for me, guys. I really appreciate you coming. I'm going to hand it over to Cameron now to kind of finish up here and go over the next steps if you guys are interested.
Yeah, thank you, Kian. And if you guys would like to kind of explore the Austin market further, we do have a market data packet on our website. You can see the link here. It's just marshallreddick.com/Austin. You can continue to do more research and see more data on what Kian was going over today. Similarly, when we're talking about property classes, if you kind of wonder what that is, we have basically a Reddick rating ebook here. This will go over different property classes, how we classify property classes, and what the different property classes will do. You know, what kind of tenants you can expect, what kind of maintenance and vacancy. So you can find that also on our website on www.marshallreddick.com/ebook. I'm also happy to jump on a call with you and kind of talk through if you have any questions on that ebook. So when it comes to investing, like where do you start? You know, where do you begin? Well, first you would start with a real estate advisor like myself. We can kind of go over your criteria, we can go over your goals to help offer solutions and services to meet them. And we'll start with maybe a couple questions. First being, why invest in real estate? You can buy stocks, you can buy bonds, you can buy mutual funds, and there's so many different kinds of investments out there. Why choose real estate? I know maybe a quick answer might be you want to have a hard asset, a tangible asset to provide value, a good place to park your money. So when looking at specific criteria, it's also important to ask, are you looking for income right now, or are you looking for long-term wealth? When are you looking to retire? What's your risk tolerance? Maybe you might have a goal to purchase a property every year until you do retire, or maybe there's a certain number. Maybe you want 5 properties until you retire. We will kind of go over and get that criteria down. Do you qualify for conventional financing? How much experience do you have? And of course, we want to figure out what kind of properties you're looking at, and that might be dependent on what can you afford. Some markets make more financial sense for investments than other markets do. And so last is you'll be working with me and I'll be connecting you to the right people for next steps, whether that be a preferred lender to get you pre-approved. Maybe that's going to be the specific realtor in that market that you're looking at. So we can go ahead and make offers and close and finish the transaction. Maybe it's an insurance agent, whatever that might be. That's kind of what we'll go over. So lastly, here's my information. You can go ahead and write this down. You can scan the QR code. Feel free to text me or call me or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to set up a consultation call where we can kind of go over your criteria, answer any questions you may have. And if you do have questions here, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'd be happy to go over those and send you in a follow-up email and set up a time to talk. And thank you guys so much for joining tonight. Thank you, Kian.
Thank you guys so much. We'll hopefully be in touch. You take care.